here. When is the right time to buy real estate? Get my thing going here. All right. When is the right time to buy real estate? And the correct answer is always. Always, 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 always. Right? It's the same thing with people trying to time the market, trying to buy a stock low and sell high. You're never going to time the market. It's not going to work. You're not going to do it in real estate no matter what, right? So why is always the correct answer for when you should buy real estate? And I'm talking more about like investing, right? And I mean, even a home, right? Most people live in their homes for so long that it doesn't matter if the price goes up and down or fluctuates a little bit. It's essentially going to come back and go above where it was at. And that's just life and economics and how things work. So to go along with that, it doesn't matter if it's rainy, sunny, snowy, whatever, right? It doesn't matter the time of year. It doesn't matter if, like I said, the property prices are super high or super low, right? The most important thing is that we've talked about this a whole bunch of times, but the numbers working, right? And this goes for fix and flips, and this goes for rentals and so on and so forth, right? So for rentals, if you're not in a market that's like crazy, these markets have been crazy before like all this happened, right? So like New York and California, prices were super high, rent rates were relatively low, they had rent control, they had all this stuff. It didn't make sense to buy there before. It just makes less sense to buy there now, right? So rentals, if the numbers work, like our rents here, I think they've gone up in the past year, right? Because there's so little places to live. Will rents go up any higher than what they currently are? Probably not, just because income is not rising at the same tide. So it's hard for those numbers to like keep up, right? And at the same point, imagine this. Back, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, you could buy apartments. Not even that long ago. You could probably buy apartments like, I don't know, maybe 15, 10 years ago. Yeah, let's say like 15 to 20 years ago. You could buy apartments probably for like $20 a door and rent it out for like $600 a month. So that was like a 3%, like the 3% rule, you know, people do the 1% rule. That's crazy. Where was everyone at? Like, what were everyone that's like 40 and 50 years old, why do you not have a million apartment buildings? Like, Jesus. Anyway. But yeah, rentals, right? I think they're always going to work, right? And same thing with fix and flips. Granted, there is more risk in fix and flips because something weird can happen, like COVID, and people can't see the houses. Like in March, like you really couldn't have sold the house, right? Because no one could look at it, no one could leave their house. You know, it was a weird time. So stuff like that does happen and makes fix and flips like more risky. But even those, they always work because the numbers are always dictated by what the market is, right? And you can tell if the market's trending up or trending down. Luckily, we've been trending up, so every single house we've bought, the numbers that we bought it at was X. We got X plus like 10 or 20 for the listing price, and then by the time we sold it, we were at like X plus 10 or 20 plus like another 10 or 20, right? Which is just insane. But the same thing goes when the market's trending down, right? You can see the way it's trending, so you can put that into your numbers. And the biggest reason why, well, there's two big reasons why it's always a good time to buy real estate if you're getting into investing, right? And it's the tree analogy, right? So in the tree analogy goes, when's the best time to plant a tree? I don't know, yesterday or whatever it was, 10 years ago. Same thing with real estate, right? Like every year, like the first place I bought, I'm like, damn, I should have bought like 50 more. The year after that, I should have bought 50 more. Looking at it this year from last year, I should have bought 50 more, right? It's always that same thing, right? I say that every year, like, man, I should have bought like X amount more. But the other thing to keep in mind is a lot of people try to time the market perfectly. And what ends up happening is they're going to sit there, try to time the market perfectly. And other people, such as myself and all the other investors, they're just out there buying. So if the numbers work, obviously, right? There's obviously people that buy with the numbers that don't work, but whatever. Let them do their thing. But you just buy stuff that makes the numbers work. But essentially is, let's say there is a correction and there's a whole bunch of inventory. You're still going to be sitting there trying to figure out if the timing's right, trying to get your ducks in order, trying to whatever you're doing. Whereas guys that are always buying, right, like me, we're ready and we're already buying. Like by the time you even like run your numbers and like analyze it to death, like most people do, and you should analyze things, but not to death. We've already bought them, right? So that's why it's super important not to wait on the sidelines. If the numbers work, pull the trigger, even though right now it is hard to find deals with numbers working, but they're still out there, right? So it's always a good time to buy as long as you're getting a good deal, right? That's like the caveat. Or as long as your exit strategy matches what you're doing, right? So that can be a whole nother conversation. But as far as rental goes, right, rental rates are probably going to be X, and right, you just got to figure out what you're going to pay for that house to make those rental rates work. But the whole point of this video is it's always a good time to buy real estate, right? Because look at all the trees around your house. Someone planted those. And if they didn't, I don't know where I'm going with this analogy, you'd be looking around your house and your yard like, man, I wish I would have had more trees around here. But aren't you sure glad that those people planted those trees 10, 20, 30 years ago? That can be you 10, 20 years from today. Be like, oh, I'm sure glad I bought all these rental properties 10, 20, 30 years ago. And that analogy somehow made sense. So that is great news. But always a great time to buy real estate. And if you think different, let me know, because I'm curious. But I always, that's my opinion, I guess. And my hat agrees. And Lucy, she's sleeping, so. But she would, if she wasn't sleeping, she would agree too, because she's a smart puppy. So anyway, have a great night, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and I'll see you on the next one.